Him, Honorable Minister for Defence, Khwaja Mohammad Asif Sahib, Honorable Khurram Dastagir Sahib, former Federal Minister, Lieutenant General Amir Riaz Sahib, Ambassador Johar Salim Sahib, Mr. Ahmed Bilal Sufi Sahib, Meher Ali Shah Sahib, the Indus Water Treaty Commissioner, our esteemed guests from abroad, I would like to formally welcome Dr. Victor Gao, Madam Roxalana Zigon, Madam Laurie Watkins, and of course today's host, Madam Tania Francis, Honorable Ambassadors, Your Excellencies, celebrities from all across Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. It is my distinct honor and privilege to address this seminar today on the theme of Indus Water Treaty, an instrument of peace and regional stability. Today, we are not merely discussing a treaty. We are discussing the lifeline of more than 240 million people of Pakistan. When we identify ourselves as Pakistanis, we ask a question as to who we are. And if you go back into history, the Indus water civilization defines us as a people. Whenever I go abroad, I often tell my counterparts that we are the people of the Indus Valley civilization. Our identification is that we are people based on the banks and tributaries of the mighty river Indus. And as they say, water is life. And Indus has given life to Pakistan. So when we say that Indus is our lifeline and our people, the 240 million people of Pakistan, have an inalienable right to the water of Indus, we mean it from the core of our heart. For Pakistan, as I said, water is not simply a resource. It is a matter of life itself. The Indus River system, for thousands of years, nurtured one of the world's oldest civilizations. From the towering peaks of Gilgit-Baltistan to the fertile plains of Punjab and Sindh, these waters have connected our people across geography and history. The story of Pakistan is in many ways the story of the Indus. It is for this reason that the Indus Waters Treaty of 1960 occupies such a unique place in international relations. Signed under the auspices of the World Bank, the treaty has endured wars, political upheavals, prolonged periods of tensions. Its resilience for more than over 6 decades demonstrates an enduring truth that cooperation, dialogue, and adherence to the world national commitment. The treaty has endured wars, political upheavals, prolonged periods of tensions. Its resilience
सिंध ताज मुआहदे पर बैनुल-अक़वामी सेमिनार वज़ीर इत्तलात तलौतार सेमिनार से खिताब कर रहे हैं। सिंध ताज से मुताल्लिक़ आलमी सेमिनार इस्लामाबाद में जारी है।
Rule-based international order. It embodies the principle of good faith, pacta sunt servanda, the sanctity of agreements and peaceful dispute resolution. These are not merely legal concepts. They are foundations upon which trust is built. But ladies and gentlemen, as our national leadership has made it very clear, amended, revoked, suspended, or held in abeyance because it cannot be done unilaterally. This pact came into being after mutual consensus, and only mutual consensus can lead to any amendment or revision. India's failed attempt at unilaterally holding in abeyance this treaty has led to international embarrassment for India at various forums, including legal forums. So when an attempt is made, or a one-sided attempt is made to hold this treaty in abeyance, the moral, social, legal foundations of that attempt are extremely weak. And any structure which has weak foundations will fall flat on its face. Ladies and gentlemen, at a time when climate change is accelerating, glaciers are melting at unprecedented rates, and water scarcity is becoming one of the defining challenges of our era. Hence, the need to protect this treaty is of the essence. And a need was felt to bring international experts together on this forum today to speak about the sanctity of water, of climate change, of water scarcity, and most important of all, the sanctity of the agreement which is called the Indus Water Treaty. South Asia is home to nearly a quarter of humanity. Our collective future depends upon transforming water from a source of contention into a catalyst for cooperation. History teaches us that rivers do not divide civilization, they connect them. Rivers transcend borders, politics, and generations. They remind us that nature recognizes no boundaries and that humanity's shared challenges demand shared solutions. Any attempt to block or stop water will always fail because water will always find a way. The weaponization of water or attempts to unilaterally alter established arrangements undermine not only regional peace and stability, but also the framework of international law. International agreements, as I said, cannot be suspended or disregarded at convenience. Respect for treaties is indispensable for maintaining confidence among nations and preserving global order. Pakistan has consistently demonstrated its commitment to peaceful engagement and constructive dialogue and the faithful implementation of the treaty. But if an attempt is made to stop the water of Pakistan, our national leadership stands resolved to respond effectively to restore the water for the people of Pakistan. As the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, we also recognize the critical role of media and strategic communication in this context. In an age marked by misinformation and disinformation, it is imperative that the facts prevail over false narratives and truth triumphs over propaganda. Responsible media discourse can contribute significantly to fostering understanding, promoting peace, and reinforcing confidence-building measures. Distinguished participants, this seminar brings together eminent policymakers, legal experts, academics, and practitioners from across the world. Your collective wisdom and your thoughts will undoubtedly enrich our understanding and generate valuable recommendations for preserving and strengthening this vital international instrument. Let us reaffirm today that we will, by all means, not only protect the sanctity of this treaty, but we will do all that we can to protect the inalienable right of the 240 million of people of Pakistan to the water of the Indus River. The waters of the Indus have flowed for millennia. They have witnessed transformations, yet they continue to sustain life with unwavering generosity. It is our collective responsibility to ensure that these waters remain a symbol of peace and shared prosperity for generations to come. I would also like to commend the Institute of Regional Studies and all partner institutions who have made this event possible today. And we collectively resolve today that we will do all that we can at all international forums, legally and otherwise, to ensure that the right to water of the Pakistani people is not only protected, but the world gets to see the attempts being made, the illegal attempts being made by India to alter or change this treaty, which it cannot do. And the right to water shall always remain very sacred. And the people of Pakistan, most of them who rely on agriculture for their livelihood and across Pakistan. So I think agriculture is the backbone of our country. and we are faced with challenges like climate change, but we must resolve today that this treaty shall prevail, and Pakistan stands firm in its determination to protect the livelihoods and the lives of the people of Pakistan, which are linked to the Indus River. Thank you very much, Pakistan Zindabad.
सिंध ताज़ मुआहदा बैनुल-अक़वामी सेमिनार इस्लामाबाद में जारी है, जिसमें वफाकी वज़ीर इत्तलात तलौतार सेमिनार से खिताब कर रहे थे। उनका यह कहना था कि इस वक्त पानी सिर्फ पाकिस्तान की ज़रूरत नहीं बल्कि पाकिस्तान के लिए ज़िंदगी का मसला है। पाकिस्तान के लिए पानी एक कुदरती वसीला नहीं बल्कि ज़िंदगी का मसला है, कौमी मईशत का बुनियादी सतून है और दरियाए सिंध इसकी शहरग है। 6 दहाइयाँ कबल दो ममालिक ने एक गैर मामूली फ़ैसला किया था, जिसके बाद पाकिस्तान और दूसरे मुल्क के दरमियान, दूसरे फरीक के दरमियान ये तय हुआ था सिंध ताज़ मुआहदे के नाम से, जिसमें पानी की तकसीम का फार्मूला तय पाया था। और पाकिस्तान की तारीख भी दरअसल दरियाए सिंध की तारीख के साथ मुंसलिक है। उनका ये कहना था कि 1960 का सिंध ताज़ मुआहदा बैनुल-अक़वामी सतह पर एक तस्लीम शुदा हकीकत है, जिसके बाद फरीक मुखालिफ जो है वो उसको काटना चाहता है। उनका ये कहना था कि पाकिस्तान की अक्सर आबादी ज़राअत पेशा है और ज़राअत पाकिस्तान की कौमी मईशत का सतून है। इस हवाले से ज़राअत के लिए पानी इंतहाई ज़रूरी है और पाकिस्तान के लिए पानी ज़िंदगी का मसला है। उनका ये कहना था कि पाकिस्तान के लिए पानी ना सिर्फ एक ज़रूरत है बल्कि ना सिर्फ मईशत के लिए एक सतून है बल्कि ज़िंदगी का मसला है। उसके लिए ज़राअत कौमी मईशत का बुनियादी सतून है और ज़राअत के लिए पानी उसकी शहरग है। जबकि आपको बताते चलें कि उनका ये मज़ीद कहना था कि दरिया सिंध पाकिस्तान में पानी आया और ज़िंदगी के लिए शहरग की हैसियत रखता है।
Pakistan's Commissioner for Indus, Mr. Shah, oversees technical consultations, inspections, hydrological coordination and treaty implementation under one of the world's most significant transboundary water agreements. Our next distinguished speaker for this session will be Mr. Emma Bilal Sufi, former federal law minister and one of Pakistan's foremost authorities on international law. As an internationally respected jurist and legal scholar, he has advised governments and international organizations on treaty law, state responsibility, constitutional affairs, and the peaceful settlement of international disputes. And our final speaker in this session is Dr. Roxolana Zigon, an eminent scholar who is head of the Scientific Center of International and Strategic Studies at the University of World Civilizations in Moscow. Her research examines international security, geopolitical developments, humanitarian issues, and global governance, bringing a valuable comparative and international perspective to questions of regional peace and transboundary cooperation. Thank you for joining us. I now request the session chair to please commence the proceedings. Mr. Khurram Dastagir.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much to Institute of Regional Studies, my dear friend Ambassador Johar Salim, for this very kind invitation. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, we could not ask for a more relevant panel that Institute of Regional Studies has assembled for us this morning. 3 very distinguished experts are here to enlighten us and to take this discussion further, which of course is highly legal and technical, but has other aspects that our eminent panelists will bring to the fore. So I'm delighted to invite to begin the proceedings the Indus Waters Commissioner of Pakistan, Mr. Maryam Shah, to come and give his remarks.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Honorable Federal Minister for Defense, Honorable Federal Minister for Climate Change, Honorable Federal Minister for the Information and the Broadcasting, distinguished defense leadership, respected chair, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, may I request to please display the presentation which I shared with the organizers? Yeah. So let me be clear. This is not going to be an engineering briefing alone, it is the first institutional statement after the inaugural and the keynote address. My purpose is to place the treaty's operating record before this forum. The Indus Waters Treaty is a conflict prevention system, whereas the Permanent Indus Commission is the mechanism that keeps that system alive. Next, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I will not duplicate the political keynote, the legal analysis, the humanitarian assessment, or the security discussion for that matter that will follow. My role is narrower, but essential. I'll place before this forum the operating record of the treaty, what the treaty requires, what Pakistan has done, and what happens when the routine channels are blocked. This is where the principle meets the practice. Next, please. For Pakistan, this is national security, not merely the hydrology. Flow predictability is not, ladies and gentlemen, a luxury of planning. It is part of the survival architecture of the state. When the lives and livelihoods of 240 million people are tied to the Indus Basin, when more than 80% of the arable land depends on these waters, which constitutes around 45 million acres of land, which is being irrigated by the canal waters, and that is a promise the state makes with the farmers. When agriculture contributes almost a quarter of GDP and 1/3 of the employment, water uncertainty becomes the national uncertainty. Pakistan's restraint has been deliberate, but water, food, livelihood, and social stability are not negotiable abstractions. That is why Pakistan has publicly defined the strategic threshold for any attempt to stop or divert the treaty waters belonging to Pakistan. Next, please. The treaty converted a territorial river system into a legal architecture by way of limiting, fixing and delimiting the rights and obligations of the parties owed to each other. The eastern rivers were, so we all know, allocated to India, whereas the western rivers, the Indus, the Jhelum, and the Chenab, were placed under the general rule of Pakistan's unrestricted use, with India's uses confined to carefully defined exceptions. Pakistan accepted that bargain, rebuilt its irrigation life around that bargain. That is very important. And planned its national water economy on the assurance that the western rivers would be let flow. The bargain remains the bargain. It was not a favor, it was a binding settlement, binding on both the parties. Next, please. You can see on the screen that how this treaty serves as a conflict prevention design. Ladies and gentlemen, the treaty is basically engineering for peace, which works because the four elements operate together: the allocation, the cooperation, the institution, and the dispute control. Allocation tells each side that what it may use and what it may not use. Cooperation provides data, notice, and inspection. And the Commission gives a regular channel of communication, whereas the Article 9 gives a safety valve when questions cannot be settled bilaterally. You just remove one element and the peace function starts to fail. Therefore, the abeyance is not a diplomatic slogan. We need to understand that it is an attempt to disable the stabilizing architecture. Next, please. Next. Now I would come to the Article 8 of the total 12 articles of the treaty, which makes the Commission, the Permanent Indus Commission, the treaty's early warning system. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not a mailbox or a post office. It is, in fact, the operating mechanism that keeps water out of conflict. The Commission converts suspicion into data, and data into verification, and verification into the settlements. Regular meetings, tours, project information, Article 6 data, special inspections, and the annual reports are not merely the rituals or formalities. They are the treaty's first safety device. When the Commission is blocked, consequently, the first stage of dispute avoidance is blocked. Next, please. Now coming to one of the most important articles of the treaty, that is Article 9. And this is the article which, I have no inhibition to say that bites more to India, because this is basically not a courtroom afterthought. This is basically one of the articles of the treaty which provides a very elaborate dispute resolution mechanism which starts at a bilateral level, at the Commission level, and in case the bilateral level settlement does not succeed, then it allows, without any paralysis, to move on to the third forum. So it is a progressive ladder, and it begins with questions before the Commission. If a question cannot be resolved, the treaty provides structured routes toward a neutral expert or a court of arbitration. The sequence is deliberate: institutional settlement first, third-party determination where necessary, but no paralysis. And Pakistan has used this ladder in past and also presently. The point to be highlighted is that non-response cannot be allowed to destroy the ladder. Next, please. And now comes the Court of Arbitration, which basically stems out of the Article 9 of the treaty. And the Court of Arbitration has basically strengthened the legal certainty. The court did not weaken the treaty, it basically reactivated the treaty. If we see simply towards the history of the implementation of the treaty, we can see that ever since India started the development of its works on the Western rivers, and that was basically started at a very fast pace from the year starting 2000. So there has always been a discord between the parties, and eventually in 2016, Pakistan decided that now is the time to have the general interpretation of the Indus Waters Treaty, particularly the provisions which govern the development by India on the Western rivers. So the Court of Arbitration's rulings, we are fortunate that we received 2 awards from the Court of Arbitration, one last year in the month of August, and the second, which was a supplemental award, so this year, a month before. So the court's rulings on competence, may those be the matters related to competence or the general interpretation or the specific design issue of maximum pondage, the court has confirmed 4 essential points to be noted. First, that India's non-appearance before the court does not paralyze the proceedings. Second, the abeyance posture does not deprive the court of competence. And third, the awards are final, binding, and controlling. And India must let flow the Western rivers with treaty exceptions applied strictly. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a political rhetoric, and it is no more a Pakistan's position paper. It is the treaty speaking through its own court. Next, please. So let's talk about, in specific terms, about the awards, that, how these awards operationalize the terms of the treaty. The court's award translate the legal obligations into the operational discipline. Like the let flow is the general rule for the Western rivers and an obligation for India to fulfill. And run-off river hydropower is permitted to India only within the Article 3 and Annexure D, and pondage must be realistic. Installed capacity of the new run-of-river hydroelectric plants and their anticipated load cannot be inflated to create the operational discretion by way of inflating the pottage. Minimum downstream flow obligations and the environmental concerns must be respected. This is what the court has said. And Pakistan does not object, ladies and gentlemen, to the lawful hydropower. Lawful hydropower is not the problem for Pakistan, but, and it's a very big but, that the unlawful control, excessive discretion, and the opaque operation are the problem. Next, please. Now, I would share briefly that how Pakistan has kept the channel alive despite India's posturing of abeyance. Starting from the year 2025 and 26, the treaty year, which ended on 31st of March this year, the record is basically institutional. Pakistan kept the channel alive. I share it with full responsibility. Pakistan continued to provide the required data. Pakistan sent correspondence. Pakistan requested meetings, inspections, project information, and Article 9 consultations. Pakistan also prepared and transmitted the draft annual report, even in the exceptional circumstances, but there has been no response from the other side. On the other side of the record, before 2025, when India announced to hold the treaty in abeyance, we also see a similar pattern from the Indian side, and that was that there has been no commission meeting after May 2022, no general or special tour of inspection. Corresponding monthly data has remained outstanding after August 2023, and multiple core treaty communications have received no response. This is precisely what increases the risk of the avoidable escalation. Next, please. Now, what happens when data stops? The hydrological information, ladies and gentlemen, is not a diplomatic courtesy. It is an operational necessity. Without data, the downstream state is forced to guess whether it faces nature or the upstream operation. Only last night, I have been writing to my Indian counterpart when I observed significant fluctuations in the flows of Chenab yet again for the fourth time since last year, April 2025. That is not a technical inconvenience. It is a strategic hazard. Flood forecasting windows shrink, irrigation scheduling becomes uncertain at the sowing stage particularly, barrage and reservoir operations lose the predictive confidence, technical verification is displaced by strategic doubt. Therefore, there is no brainer in understanding that the data sharing is the line between the natural risk and the manufactured vulnerability. Next, please. As I just discussed about the manipulations of the flows of Chenab at Marala, so the Chenab episodes required answers. I will state this carefully and without overclaiming causation. These events required explanation and operational data, and we have been asking to India. Pakistan asked for that through the treaty channels, and ladies and gentlemen, there is no response from the Indian side, and the non-response creates the risk. When flows at Marala moved from a peak of 78,000 cusick to only 1,500 cusick in May 2025, when December 2025 shows a movement from 58,000 cusick down to 870 cusick, and when May 2026 records a sharp fall within the event window, no responsible downstream commissioner can treat that as a routine and move on. These are precisely the events the Commission exists to examine, with data, inspection, and consultation. Next, please. Now, I would like to show you a pattern, that how the pattern matters. Ladies and gentlemen, the issue is not hydropower for Pakistan. The issue is basically accumulated upstream control without the treaty discipline. The discipline which has been enshrined into the treaty as its fundamental core. You can see on the map all the red boxes are the ones which have put now the western rivers and particularly the Chenab under stress. Starting from Marala Barrage upstream, you can see that India has started reopening of its low-level outlets, and what would happen in simple terms, that by way of so doing, so India will have a control by way of, emptying the reservoir and refilling, and then basically repeating these, manipulations just to the detriment of Pakistan, which is, by the way, only 70 kilometers downstream of Salal. And the story does not stop. This basically leads to a pattern where India is going to construct its Sawalkot hydropower. The Ratle is, presently under construction. Similarly, 1,000 megawatt Pakaldol is under construction. Kiru and Kawar are with the same status. And now India has started to develop the Chenab-Beas link, so which has a potential to divert the water of 1.9 million acre-feet. So as I have been trying to articulate, that the major issue, the core issue, is basically accumulated upstream control without the treaty discipline. One project may be a question in terms of the Article 9, but a cluster of accelerated works with no data, no inspection, and no commission engagement, that becomes a strategic pattern. No more a question. So I have already explained briefly that, what is going to happen with these projects. So Pakistan say yes to only lawful runoff river generation, but Pakistan, of course, says no to the unlawful control, diversion, opacity, and the failure to comply. Next, please. So coming to close my presentation, I would like to say something briefly about the diversion and the control. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are the two issues which require a particular attention because they go to the character of the bargain. First, the reported Chenab-Beas link. Pakistan's legal position is very clear, and that stems out from the Article 3, which governs the three western rivers and contains as such no freestanding category of the surplus western river waters available for diversion by India into an eastern river basin. Diversion changes the character of the bargain. The bargain, which is, at the core of the treaty through which Pakistan agreed to forego and surrender its rights of the three eastern rivers. Second is the Salal, as I explained. And ladies and gentlemen, so there has been a bilateral agreement signed by the then, Indian Minister for External Affairs back in the year 1978, Mr. A.B. Vajpayee, and from Pakistan's side, it was signed by Pakistan's Foreign Minister Agha Shahi. That agreement required the outlet works to be permanently plugged, and those were plugged. Now, if removal is claimed to be necessary for a safety emergency, the agreement requires, immediate information, consultation, and site inspection. Alterations, essentially require the mutual agreement, and reopening low-level outlets changes the control, as I explained, posture of a project governed by a specific bilateral agreement. So the Commission must examine both before facts are created on the ground. But these facts are going to be created on ground, whereas there are no consultations. Next, please. Now, coming to the international record, Pakistan is not responding only through the speeches. Pakistan has used the international system responsibly. The Deputy Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister briefed the diplomatic corps and wrote to the President of the Security Council, the President of the General Assembly, and the Secretary General. And Pakistan's permanent representative to the UN transmitted the record to the Security Council and the India-Pakistan question, under the India-Pakistan question. And ladies and gentlemen, very importantly, to the vindication of Pakistan's position, UN special procedures mandate holders in October 2025 have publicly recognized serious human rights concerns comprising the water, food, livelihood, environment, and the development. We are taking the matter to the world not only to internationalize a quarrel, but to prevent a treaty breakdown from becoming a security crisis. Water is life and it cannot be weaponized. Next, please. Something about Pakistan's own water house. So, ladies and gentlemen, this point is equally important. Pakistan is not merely asserting the rights abroad. Pakistan is strengthening its own water house at home. Treaty rights and domestic reform are two sides of the same national water strategy. Pakistan is basically improving the water storage and regulation, the reservoir safety, sediment management, hydropower capacity, water accounting, telemetry, canal rehabilitation, groundwater discipline, climate resilience, and agricultural productivity. We are already on a national journey to protect every drop, measure every flow more accurately, and produce more value from the water we lawfully receive. The stronger Pakistan, of course, becomes at home, the clearer its message becomes abroad. We protect every drop we receive, and we will not accept coercion over any drop we are entitled to receive. Next. So this is the last slide of my presentation where I would like to highlight the significance and importance to restore the framework. The treaty's answer to this stress which we have been discussing so far and will be discussing in the remaining sessions of today's seminar is basically not the abeyance, it is performance. The way forward is very clear. An immediate commission meeting, full restoration of Article 6 data, general and special tours and inspections, project record disclosure, including the drawing standard documents, schedules, hydraulic designs, and operating rules, and Article 9 discipline, beginning with the commission examination and ending with respect for the courts of arbitration and the neutral expert.